Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV. It is Monday, August 17th, 2026. So glad to be back with you here on the channel. I'll jump in with my disclaimer. My video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you here on You Are Free TV this week. It's been an amazing week. I had to take an unexpected sort of wellness break last week, so I'm so sorry I couldn't be here. And thanks so much. I always appreciate so much your prayers and you're sticking with me when I have to sometimes take these breaks. And I want to say thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel. You make it happen, and I'm so appreciative. So we are going to jump here into the news. There is so much, and there's a lot of good stuff going on. And so I hope you're able to weed through all of the just the negativity, the blackpilling, and see the incredible coalescing of so many incredible elements of taking down of the cartel Babylon, as I like to call them. But we're going to start here today. Of course, we've got that Florida primary imminent. And I had an urgent message from a viewer, Carmen, who is very testy that I hadn't talked about Paul Renner, of course, the former Speaker of the House, who is, of course, running in this primary in Florida. And kind of Fishback has become his stalking horse to kind of take all the policies about anti-AI data centers and et cetera, and kind of eclipsing Renner with his massive campaign going everywhere. And Renner is the real deal, basically upholding everything that DeSantis stands for and then some when it comes to very firm policies, not only on the AI data centers, but going forward into the situation of the Islamic jihad takeover in Florida, the situation with the this is very important, the solar farms, right? The CCP solar farms that DeSantis is the one thing that he really didn't deal with is this solar farm energy cartel in Florida. So this is very exciting to see this happening. And Paul Renner tomorrow, of course. So I will link below his, you can go check out his site running there in the primary to get up against, of course, Donald's, right? So there's that. And then also, I wanted to say the exciting news, of course, Caroline Leavitt is leaving as White House press secretary. And there's all like, oh, it's, black pill, oh, she's leaving because she sees the writing on the wall, Trump is failing. I mean, it's just all this stuff, right? It's just baloney, in my opinion. And of course, they're going to be seeking the replacement. And one, there's been several names mentioned. One that I find very exciting is Alina Habba as her replacement. That would be my number one choice. There was Matt Boyle out of Breitbart. There is Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife. There is Monica Crowley, the chief of protocol, right, who deals with all of the international visits to the White House, as well as everything America 250. That's Monica Crowley, long experience since, the Bush days in the White House. And also why I love Alina Habba for White House press secretary is because, of course, she has been a stalwart for Trump and never bending, never, she was a lawyer for him during his prosecutions. She has been, of course, she was put in as the New Jersey U.S. attorney, who they were able to oust because, the senators withholding their blue slips are feckless, disgusting, awful Senate that, besides the good ones, the Thune cartel there. And she got taken out as being New Jersey U.S. attorney when she was going to be having some incredible cases there to deal with, which they know. And so Habba, I think, would be fantastic as a very, it's very important that the White House press secretary be putting forth the Trump administration's policies and plans very clearly without divided interests or divided allegiances, right? And so that's where I take people like Matt Boyle as no, I watched an interview with him last week on Bannon, where he's sitting in Greece, he's hobnobbing with the vice president there, and came out very pro-Ukraine in that interview, which at this point, I think for anybody watching my channel, you know that I am not pro-Ukraine. And I think that it is important that we don't have a White House press secretary who has these kinds of views going forward as we're finally trying to end this bogus beard of a war to increase the European cartel, bankster elite, Iran's real city of London, and move on from that. And so I'm not, and Breitbart just isn't what it used to be. Let's just admit that. Okay. And so it's definitely not what Andrew Breitbart's vision would have been for today. And then we have, of course, Marla Crowley, too much, in my opinion. And I don't have a huge opinion either way for Katie Miller. Just, I think Alina Habba would be just a bulldog as a White House press secretary. So long, long thing that I went into there for that. But I think it's important to, just express what I'm thinking there. And let's get into a few other things. I didn't think I'd be going here immediately, but this has to do with the death of the sudden death of Hayden Panettiere, right? The 36-year-old actress from Heroes in Nashville, et cetera, who ends up dead at 36 years old in an apartment in Greenville, South Carolina. Never said to be her apartment. South Carolina, right? I'll just throw in here, of course, we got Darlene Graham, who gets so high up in the primary there with Ralph Norman and her now get to go in this runoff. And of course, Mark Lynch just out of the picture, right? Eclipsed by this Lindsey Graham dead situation. And so what we have with Darlene is that from reports, she didn't vote in the last two primary cycles, and that is mandatory if you're running for state senate in South Carolina. And so not really even qualified to run. So there's all this special stuff. There's all this containment, okay, of the Lindsey Graham information, okay? And his whole team is now running her. And so very interesting, the South Carolina situation. But even more interesting, I believe, is that Panettiere, her ex-fiance is none other than Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko, the Ukrainian boxer, right? I believe 50 years old, born in 1976, right? And he is the brother of Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kiev, right? And so this to me is a giant, big old raging red flag. She had a daughter with him, and she had gone through some troubles. She has a memoir called This Is Me, talking about her struggles with alcoholism, postpartum depression, this sort of thing. However, this is not recent, and we have this useful scenario, this narrative where, oh, there was Narcan in the apartment, but this heart attack, they're citing her brother died young from a heart attack, and that she has this sudden heart attack, right? And she was bisexual, by the way, had to struggle with that. And so basically what I'm saying here is she was engaged to this situation of Vladimir Klitschko being the very close brother to Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kiev. And what happened here is they're both champion boxers. I believe both of them represented the Olympics. And there was tons of corruption that even had to do with that. Okay, this is Ukraine, right? And so what we get here is this 50-year-old ex-fiance of Panettiere, who has, I believe, full custody of their 7-year-old daughter. You just have to wonder what was going on. Okay, this timing of Lindsey Graham dead, South Carolina. This whole situation of this cleanup operation around Ukraine and all the people, all of the money laundering, everything going on. And that, you have to, if she was considered an unstable person who knew stuff, and this is all for entertainment purposes only. Just think of all the other Hollywood actors out there that have such close ties with Ukraine and Zelensky directly in a cleanup operation. You'd think they'd want to increase their security, but for entertainment purposes only. But when we look at this and we see Vitaly Klitschko being Vladimir's brother, older brother, who, as the mayor of Kiev, of course, last year, was accused of high treason and money laundering by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, right? And this is the same bureau, of course, Viktor Shokin, the $1 billion firing by Joe Biden. And this has come up. Zelensky has been bringing in all of these operators who have been under investigation by the NACB and putting them back into very elite positions as this fall comes and whatever is going to happen there with the wrapping up of the Ukraine war and the NATO situation, as Trump is coming out and basically doing a loyalty test on NATO. We'll get into that a little bit down the line here in this video. But just to go on from there, so Klitschko has this massive investigation, money laundering, but it's not just this. This is about a huge, in the billions with a B, okay, when it comes to a massive women sex trafficking operation empire, what they described as an empire of trafficking in women, okay? We have from the Hunter Biden laptop, which now Hunter Biden on Tucker is saying came from Israel, right? Whatever. It's Ukraine, Israel, North, all the same thing. But basically what we get here is all this laptop stuff. And part of that on there was, of course, these, Ukrainian, sex trafficked women. And so, but, it's very interesting to watch this. Okay. So you get this massive criminal, the mayor of Kiev, and you get his brother being the ex-fiance of Panettiere, who is now deaded, heart attack, the old heart attack, right? There was Narcan in the house, right? She must have OD'd, but she had an alcohol problem. There's not like a pill situation mentioned, but I haven't read the memoir, so I don't know her full situation. But prayers to her and prayers for their 7-year-old daughter, because yikes. And so really, truly prayers that, the full armor of God come and protect that girl. And so who knows what was going on right before she ended up dead on yesterday. And I wanted to bring that to your attention about Vladimir Klitschko, the Ukrainian boxer, and his brother, the mayor of Kiev, and the high treason and all of it, and the massive empire in the billions of money made to do with the trafficking of women. Okay, so huge protection around that 7-year-old girl. And it all comes at the same time, right? We've got the Graham death. We've got then, this book that just came out or is about to by Viktor Shokin, who was, of course, the fired, who Giuliani connected with about all of the Burisma stuff, Hunter Biden, the Bidens, Obama, all of it to do with everything. Well, he has his book coming out, this tell all, naming names about so much corruption. And he, of course, was the prosecutor general of Ukraine, who also, of course, intimately connected with the NACB. And it's like the AG of the U.S. And he's alleging that there's 300 in his book, and that he's naming names and hopefully protected, very much so. He basically is saying he alleges that $350 billion of U.S. taxpayer money, some European, but the majority U.S. taxpayer dollars, and through U.S. aid and other ways, was diverted into Democrat campaigns, Democrat operatives, and I'm sure there's some rhinos in there. The Ukraine lobby is massive. It overshadows AIPAC as tiny compared to it, and it diverted into Democrat political machine and also other globalist networks involved in all kinds of things. And so he also mentions how Biden, when he was such an intense operative in this Ukraine coup and operation, he was known as the vice king, that he referred to himself that way, Joe Biden, with President Poroshenko being, he was the puppeteer behind Poroshenko. And basically, this gets into private bank, it gets into everything I've talked about for years and years and years, way, way back. And so this is Shokin, and Blaze Media did a great expose on this, and I'll link it below. So that's where I'm gonna leave that for now, but yikes, right? And so let's move on from there to where I wanted to go next. Let me see here. We've got so much. It's just like massive. Okay, we also had a huge, incredible breakdown of the declassified election intelligence stuff by Garland Favorito out of Georgia, who's like the expert on the steal of the Georgia election from 2020 and beyond. And he did an incredible breakdown. I'm going to see if I can just link that for you, but that gets into the massive expose that's now going on, full on China and the CCP and their operation with the Biden and the shadow government around the election steal at all. And so we'll jump to that, but there was something I want to try to stick to my little plan here, and I'm sorry for the for what appears to be my could have sworn. Sorry for the wait and the little pause. Hopefully it gives you a little time to, well, this is bizarre. Okay. Okay, sorry for the pause. Let's jump into South Korea. Okay, so this gets into the CCP stuff. And so South Korea, we have Trump today coming out and saying, yeah, my good friend Kim Jong-un, my buddy, who's in there fighting with the Russians, right, against Ukraine. We get him coming out and saying we are massively drawing down what are normally the twice yearly military exercises with South Korea. And this has to do with, of course, what was the election steal of the CCP over South Korea, and South Korea being our massively incredible ally for years and years, just with us through everything since the Korean War. And, there's still just under 29,000 soldiers stationed there. But since we had the overthrow of Yoon, the duly elected president, who knew there was election stealing going on, and had sent in troops to go and basically get hold of the election material, and declared martial law in order to do so. There was already such a massive CCP operation that the soldiers were already part of the shadow government, just like here, to overthrow him as a pro-America, pro-Trump winner of the election in South Korea, and he's now in prison for life. Okay, because they were able to oust him, impeach him, and throw him out for doing this situation of a national emergency. And he is now in prison, right? And I believe his wife is as well, for corruption charges and all of this. And the CCP, new POTUS, is of course totally being, suppressing elections, suppressing the will of the people. And what happened is right after this stealing of the most recent election for the CCP, is you had their South Korean soldiers actually going into the American base. Okay, this was like last year, like a year ago. You had them going into the American huge military facility there, and just basically going in, and we're let in, right, through our own shadow government, and we're allowed to peruse the place. Okay, peruse the place. They're saying, for national security purposes, which is absolutely unheard of, absolutely a CCP operation, to in some way, of course, show their might, but also to show to gather information and intelligence. And just this last week again, we had CCP agents posing as protesters. Okay, also getting onto the base, breaching the base, right? And this is as you're having the former president before Yoon, who has been hugely active in aligning with the U.S. to expose AWEB, right? This Association of World Election Boards that has been part and parcel with the CCP, and everybody else, Cartel Babylon, City of London, Germany, all of them, in stealing elections worldwide. And so while we're watching all of this, there's all of this unraveling to do with the espionage, the election espionage cases that are coming, Southern District of New York, and also in Southern Florida. This has to do specifically with the CCP. We also know this comes out of London. There is the UK as part of this election espionage charges, as well as other places. So what we're seeing here is Trump basically comes out and says, we're drawing down the military, we're drawing down the military exercises this year because you would not commit to, as you always do, aiding us in our operations. You wouldn't aid in what's going on in this Iran conflict. And we're very suspicious of that. We're not okay with the direction that South Korea, now as a captured nation, is going. And so what we're seeing here is his confrontation of that, okay, and giving a huge signal to Xi. Xi still has this late September, meeting in the USA still planned, but all of this CCP stuff is just rolling in full bore, and this is pretty incredible to watch happen. And we're going to keep covering it. There is a summit going on in Las Vegas, and early before the actually what is the Republican National Committee meetups in Dallas, Texas, that's going on the second week of September, to talk about, I believe, what will be coming is the national election emergency, and a national emergency declared by President Trump. It all seems to be coming out, as we're seeing also Eric Swalwell, the new information about Fang Fang coming out today, where we see that, this is Swalwell's, advisor who works with him, who basically is a CCP agent. All of this information that was captured on him, regarding all of his sexual affair with her, but also all this other disgusting, awful, sexual, gross of Eric Swalwell. And so he has been, controlled operative of the CCP for entertainment purposes only. This is all coming out, and we're watching it go down in real time. Again, he was put into the House Intelligence Committee right at this time. He was full bore in the impeachments of Trump, in the, of course, prosecutions of Trump, and we get the direct connection with the election steals that are going to be coming out. And of course, this is about the United Front. The United Front is the part of the CCP that goes out and finds politicians they can manipulate, and they can insert people into their offices. And, Dianne Feinstein, for those, the whole creation of China as a superpower was, her and her husband just really launched that huge when they said, ignore Tank Man and Tiananmen Square, ignore the human rights abuses. We really want to support China. And then, of course, flushed America down the toilet. And then, of course, we also have, what came out recently, too, of the building that was bought 650 feet from the White House by a trained sniper who also is a huge operative in the United Front. And he basically can set up every kind of information gathering, interception program there in that 9-story historic building that is just absolutely heinous. And so we're watching that as well to see if they're going to block that, if they're going to seize that. As a CCP operative, they should be able to seize that property, seize it as an asset, and kick him out, of course. And so we'll keep an eye on that as it moves forward. And so all of this is going on while we're also seeing this declassified election intelligence seminar that hopefully I can link below that Garland Favorito did today, where he showed the entire apparatus of how the self-described by Nikki Flores, the assistant counterintelligence director of the FBI at the time, saying that she is running a shadow government in the FBI to shut down everything coming in to do with the CCP's role in the election steal of 2020 and 2022, but 2020. And so what we see from this is just a great breakdown where everything for about the Chinese, this is all the declassed information that has happened in the last 10 days. And so it gets down to exposing the shadow government of our intelligence, and then it's going to go right up into the grand juries of both what's going on in Southern Florida and Southern District of New York. But it's all about the United Front, the paying off of officials, paying off reporters to write negative articles, to boost the racial divide situation and the riots, and then of course hitting the USA with a massive bioweapon with the shadow government of our disgusting apparatus. Fauci et al. More and more coming out about Fauci, which is fantastic. But some of the things, just to, I know that you've been looking at this, but so much, there's always, so much else to talk about, and the CCP gets not enough attention, right? And so when we look at things like the driver's licenses, well, let's look at the voter rolls first. Okay, there was the cyber hacking of all the White House administration officials, all of the access to all the emails and the et cetera of the people in the administration. But we get the CCP voter roll infiltration, which was over 200 million, voters, 200 million, where the CCP accesses the voter rolls. What they can do is they can acquire those absentee ballots. They can delete registered voters. They can alter the information of voters, right? And they can target the areas that they know are the strongholds and the counties and the districts and the precincts of the Trump supporters, where they can make sure, because of all the apparatus of the machines being manufactured in China, being shipped through Taiwan, and what is the transshipment scheme that Peter Navarro has been exposing recently, where they just avoid tariffs. This is an aside when it comes to trade, but they avoid tariffs by shipping all their components to another country they can control and slapping that country's, made in Vietnam, made in et cetera, et cetera. But this case, Taiwan, when it comes to the machine parts. And so they can make sure that those machines aren't functioning clearly, as we saw so much in the 2020 and 2022 elections. And also it goes on from there. So Nikki Flores, I'm running a shadow government. She's the assistant director of the counterintelligence office of the FBI, and everything must move through Albany that has anything to do with election interference through her, per the director, Alan Kohler, at the time. And so this is just a great thing to see, that all of this is coming to the head with the CCP. It's fantastic. It's like, it is really amazing to watch it roll out. And so I'm very thrilled. And so, moving on from there, as the CCP is being hugely taken on and shown and exposed for the world to see, finally at this time, at this vital time, and before the midterm elections, right? And it's kind of allowing what can happen with this national election emergency powers that Trump will be, I believe, invoking. We are going to be seeing what all of the reasons why getting so clear. And so when we, and just an example of this, even when we look at Hong, right? Like, is it Erica Hong? But the woman, the Wisconsin governor candidate, right? who was taken out at the last second with the 5 missing memory sticks, right? Right? Even how the Dems, how you're seeing that basically we saw is it Heidi Barrick of the SPLC who was arrested, right? Because she was the CFO of the SPLC that funded everything, including the Unite the Right March 2017 in Charlottesville, but all of the millions going to pay for hate, right? And generate hate, fake hate. And so, but Hong, I believe, I haven't rechecked this since I took my break, but I believe Hong was on the board of directors, okay, of the SPLC. And so I'm going to recheck that and link it below. But I believe that arrest of Barrick happened the same day, okay? It happened the same day. And so that was we better reverse this quick because this is going to be a huge scandal that's going to implode and also be, what is the the massive problem we'll have to do if we have Hong in front of the camera in the limelight and massively spotlighted. And so very interesting. If Barrick had already referred to her, we'll go on and get more into that as more comes out of it. And so going on from there, I think I want to go now to go over to NATO, go over to Ukraine, and get into some of all of this situation. We had last week Trump coming out and saying that he's going to tariff Ukraine on their drone and component sales, drone and drone components, 100% tariff. Okay, that basically he's saying we are going to make our own drones and control that technology and control who has access to it. So contrary to everything we've been so worried about, we're seeing Trump basically saying if anyone is going to be buying drones out of Ukraine, they're going to have 100% tariff on them. Of course, I believe they should just be banned, that they shouldn't be able to buy them at all. And this has to do with drones over 25 kilograms and that are equipped with thermal sensors and basically that are capable of data collection, etc. And, drone strikes, drone threats, shall we say. And so this is, it's interesting because in Ukraine, one of the corrupt people that Zelensky just put back into power is what is his name? He was in charge of the largest drone company in Ukraine. And again, the NECB had, massively gone after him for massive corruption. And you saw Dmitriev taken out as the defense minister, and this guy put back in, even though all the corruption. And of course, this is all about the drone warfare of the future, but also about the money laundering of the billions. And so we're seeing that come out directly. That Trump is saying, no, we're not turning into a Ukraine-Israel drone spy operation or technology control in the USA. So that is very exciting. And then we see Trump, putting out there this, America's, going to control the Strait of Hormuz. It's going to become an American territory. Just basically, he constantly is trolling and putting out there this pushing of the narrative to constantly bait the city of London, the city of Iran's real, the cabal out there that wants to keep pushing this Ukraine war and wants to combine it with the Iran takedown operation. We're seeing, of course, Besant going full bore on all of the banking that ties into the city of London out of Ukraine, just ramping that up more and more and more. You have all the Tether crypto wallets seized of the top IRGC and the players behind there. And of course, Lutnick's big involvement there with Tether. And so Trump comes out and says, we're going to take NATO to task. We're demanding this loyalty clarity. And he basically, in his appearance at the NYPD facility there in Nassau County in Long Island over the weekend came out and said, they don't, NATO doesn't support us, and we remember, we're not forgetting. And so he sent out a letter, a document issued to NATO members, where they have to reveal their public statements, okay, the record of their public statements on the U.S. policy in the Middle East, and also the new Western Hemisphere Donroe Doctrine of protecting the United States and drawing down out of the Middle East, as we're seeing with Iraq, the removal of the troops by the end of September. And he also is saying that they want all of that information to be revealed, and of course they will be testing it against everything they already know. And this is about Middle East policies, but also access to the EU bases, and their refusal, of course, to allow the USA to use them during the Iran situation. And so it's very interesting, as we're seeing out of Syria, them making a military pact with Russia, where they're saying with Russia can use their military bases. Okay, very interesting, in the Mediterranean. And also the situation of seizing the uranium. Again, we're looking for the signature of the uranium. Okay, so there's all this, the mountain, right? The uranium one mountain there in Iran that constantly gets the attention. But now Trump shifts and he says, hey, we're closing down this site in Syria, and we're going to be looking at the stamp on this uranium. Where did it come from? And we're going to remove it. And so again, the rabbit hole continues to be dug through in what will come out around Iran and uranium and our deep state traitor, treasonous officials. And so that is huge, what's going on with NATO. And this is as we're having Ukraine doing drone development operations in, I believe, in Michigan, at this dodgy base that has been involved in all kinds of strangeness before. I'm sorry, I don't have the name on the top of my head. I didn't plan to talk about this, but you're seeing ambassador to NATO, the former temporary AG there. He's there, and he's with Ukrainians, and there's drone stuff going on. So we're gonna keep following it and see what comes out here. But this is about Trump coming in and saying, hey, we paid for all this technology. Okay, we want it, and then you're going to stop trying to sell it to us. Okay, we're taking back all this crap that we paid for, because now we're in the age of drone warfare, and we are not going to have you take this out of us, take this away from the US. And this is the Pentagon's drone dominance program. So very interesting here. Trump citing, of course, the supply chain and security risks of this, and that we're not going to be beholden to Ukraine's real over it. So very cool, very good there. There's also some Ukraine's real election stealing fraud coming out, in cyber hacking and propaganda promotion out of the UK, and the EU refusing to follow up into investigation into this corporation made up of all former Israeli intelligence operators called Black Core. That is happening, where it's getting exposed that deliberate covering up of known election interference there in Europe and the UK. And so let's see what else I wanted to cover regarding this. We have hold on, there was a few more things along this line that I wanted to make sure I covered. We have the IRGC coming out and saying they're placing a $30,000 bounty on killing U.S. soldiers, so that's huge. We have also it being exposed by Lavrov, the foreign minister out of Russia, exposing that Ukrainians are being deployed at the state level, at the military level, to these countries in the Sahara area that I was talking about last week. We get Israel, the invasion, of course, of these, Spanish Morocco cities. But then we have the drone factory in Morocco where they're using it to attack, they basically support jihad in these Western Sahara areas. And they've been fighting this for about 14 years. And we're now seeing that what they call the Sahel areas of the Sahara being exposed, that it has been, made clear that these are Ukrainian paramilitaries in there. Just as I talked about how they've been going after and capturing in Iraq the Ukrainian paramilitaries there, and doing Israel's bidding, doing the City of London's bidding, in pushing forward the terror industrial complex to control access to energy and waterways. And so let's see, we had Witkoff and Kushner going to Israel, hanging, meeting up with Kushner's, former bed buddy, shared a bed, or whatever. Netanyahu used to sleep in his bed. Apparently, he didn't sleep there at the same time in New York. And so, but what we get here is this meetup with Kushner and Witkoff and Netanyahu, and Witkoff is saying we've got Hamas to agree and say that they are going to disarm in Gaza. That we've got their commitment, and can we please stop the disruption of that disarming by your constant attacks? And in response to that, what do we get? We get Defense Minister Ben-Gvir, the psychopath, who comes out and says, actually, we're going to perform like 30 to 40 assassinations a night in Gaza. That's our answer to that. So we'll keep following that as it goes along. It is a very squirrely situation. We saw last week, of course, the Mike Huckabee got activated, and I'm sure at risk of massive trouble if he did not, to come out and denounce the Tabe, the destruction of the Christian, one of the last remaining ancient Christian area of Palestine, where he had to come out and say, this firebombing of the last Christian village in Ukraine, in West Bank, is a horrific act of terror. Right, so they have this now walled off with fencing all around, and the IDF is now supposedly stopping the rabid Jewish settlers, operators, from continuing with this firebombing and destruction of the last Christian area of Palestine. So yes. Very, very interesting. There's so much, and I could go on and on, but we kind of see what is happening here with the waterfront, right? The international waterfront, the takedown of the international cabal, continuing. Very firm stances by Trump as they continue to attack the money and economy that reaches deep into the city of London, Iran's real. Right, the massive takedown of Ukrainian options, right, and including the funding and the defense of the Western Hemisphere, right, and all of it, and it just keeps going on, right. And so I will. There's so much other incredible news that I will save for tomorrow. All goes well, as it sure will, God willing. I will be back tomorrow to talk about a lot more domestic stuff, and we'll be watching so much come to the fore. So thanks so much for watching today. I hope you found some fantastic information in this, and a little added something that maybe you're not getting elsewhere. And if so, if you could consider supporting the channel. It's a shoestring, and any support is so hugely appreciated. Even if you just let the ad play while you go for a bathroom break or a glass of water. It is I can't stand the ads, but on Rumble you can't even, nobody will see your video if you don't enable them. So it's not like it used to be where I got to refuse all ads. from playing. So, but yeah, support the channel if you can. And of course, I have my fantastic, awesome sponsor. That is C60 Evo. This is the incredible miracle molecule. It gets into your mitochondria. It is, when it's, we call it ESS 60 because it's 100% pure for human consumption, unlike other carbon 60 products out there when tested. The solvents and other not fit for human consumption things that are in there. This is absolutely pure out of the lab in Houston, Texas, and it is hugely used by the big C clinics, using it to really enhance people's ability to fight the big C. That's all I can say on that, but amazing how people get such good benefit from cleaning out the mitochondria and the neurons from all the toxins that are leading to, from the jabs, from everything we know that is causing these turbo Cs, okay? Plus nervous system disorders, all of this stuff. But also just, inflammation, workouts, better thinking, better mood, better focus, incredible product. And you get 10% off with the c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off, and you get 15% off with a different link and code sent to you whenever you donate to the channel, and that lasts forever. So that's linked below. Ways to do that, and also MCT oil for the coconut. People who are really into the MCT factor, and then the olive oil, the most potent, able to hold the most Evo, the most ESS 60 in it, that basically it recycles in your body. It keeps going back and back to the mitochondria and capturing the toxins and working with your master hormones, your glutathione, your melatonin, to get it out of the body. So I'll leave it there for tonight. And thanks so much for watching. And we'll be back tomorrow. And yeah, we are free. Put on that full armor of God and stay active. And don't get black pilled. There's massive, massive, huge, that massive ship is turning, right? And we're coming from the not being able to put the same old analyses onto what's happening. Okay, this is not the past recycling. This is AmRev 2.0 that is to go worldwide, and it is not instant soup. And we didn't think this war was going to be easy. We knew it was going to take a lot of effort, and we're not going to be summer soldiers here, and certainly not on this channel. So you are free. Put on that full armor of God, and I will see you tomorrow.